Before we get started on the Dharma talk, please join me in invoking the Buddha's name 3 times. Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha, Namo Muni Buddha. Dear Venerable Teacher, dear Sangha, good afternoon. Before I forget, there's an announcement that next Sunday we will not have a service. So there's no service next Sunday. We will return the week after that. So just FYI. And also, as a quick mention, that tomorrow is the Buddha's Parinibbana Day, one of the important days of the year, many of the year of the Buddha. It's the day that he passed away on Parinibbana between 2 sal trees facing north. And you can see we have a statue of the Buddha's Parinibbana outside as well. Parinibbana just means his deathbed, essentially. It's the day he passed into nirvana. And so it's an auspicious day, auspicious occasion for Buddhists to renew their vows, to do repentance, and to go through some intense study. So, for those of you that are practitioners, hint, hint. So for tomorrow's evening chanting, we'll do something special instead of our typical Amitabha Sutra. So we'll do that to kind of celebrate. Not really celebrate, but you know what I mean, right? Okay. Okay, we are continuing on with the Dhammapada. We are on chapter 2. We are doing verses 26 and 27 today. And I'm going to read my translation version of it, and then there's an alternative translation that is also sufficient. I like mine better. But the verses go: Fools follow after vanity, men of evil wisdom. The wise man keeps earnestness as his best jewel. Follow not after vanity, nor be addicted to sensual pleasures. He who is earnest and meditative obtains ample joy. I'm going to read the alternative verse here, which is: Fools, men of little intelligence, give themselves over to negligence, but the wise man protects his diligence as a supreme treasure. Therefore, one should not be negligent, nor be addicted to sensual pleasures. The man who meditates with diligence attains much happiness. These verses were given during, there was a special festival going on during the Buddha's time in Savatthi, and it's a 7-day festival where it's pretty much their version of the purge. We all know what the purge is, right? So it was a festival where anything goes, basically. What happens in Savatthi stays in Savatthi, kind of an attitude. So all the castes were able to mix and mingle. Everyone was able to say and do what they wanted and get away with it with no repercussions. You can cuss out all the ministers and high officials and family, whatever it was. Everything went, right? Everything goes. And so it was also a time where men would cover themselves in ash and paint and just go out and essentially just act like clowns. And they would go to house and ask for money or ask for items, kind of like Halloween, trick-or-treating. And they wouldn't leave until they were given something, right? So they are kind of a nuance to the villagers or the city. And so because at the time there were highly accomplished lay people in the city of Savatthi, so people were, even though they were lay people, they still had some attainments. They were Srotapatanas and Anagamins, right? So they were first, second, third level of enlightenment or stages of enlightenment. And because of that, and because they knew the festival was going on, they told the Buddha to not come into town for the 7 days, so that they were fearing for the karma of the people who were participating in the festival. They didn't want these participants to disparage or to do something to the Buddha, right? So they were protecting others and protecting their karma. And so they told the Buddha to stay at the monastery, and we will bring you alms every day. And so after the festival is over on the 8th day, these lay people came to the monastery on the 8th day and kind of just gave a recap of what had happened during the past week and told the Buddha, oh, there's so many of these foolish people going around doing what they need to do, or doing what they, just highlighting what had happened, right? And so they asked the Buddha, I was like, why are people like this? Why are they acting like fools? Why are they going around nonchalantly doing a purge, having a purge? And so then the Buddha gave them these verses, and I'll say it again. Fools follow after vanity, men of evil wisdom. The wise man keeps earnestness as his best jewel. Follow not after vanity, nor be addicted to sensual pleasures. He who is earnest and meditative obtains ample joy. And so if you've been listening carefully or contemplating or meditating on any of these verses in this chapter that we've been going through, you'll notice a theme here, right? Because the chapter is called earnestness, pamada vaga. It's earnestness. And so the theme of this whole chapter is about mindfulness and meditation. And so each of these verses is a story. It's a story. It's a talk, essentially, a Dharma talk on how to be mindful in everything that we do, how to meditate on everything that we do. That anything we do is an opportunity for meditation and mindfulness. And so in these verses, if we go back to them and recall the story, if we listen to the story, if we look deeply into the story, what are these people that are participating in this festival doing? Right? What are they doing that is causing them to cover themselves in ash and paint and go out and act like fools and get drunk and do drugs and have orgies and whatnot, right? Well, what are the reason of this doing, right? It doesn't mention exactly how the festival even came up in the first place, but it mentions that the city dwellers or the villagers were essentially holding in so much of this desire to do craziness all year, and so they were given this 1 week to kind of just purge themselves of all those desires, basically, right? And so we kind of do the same thing too in our own life, for most people. When we are uncomfortable with something, or when we're unhappy, or when we're aggravated or mad, what do? Typically? We seek comfort. Right? We seek something to do to replace those unpleasant feelings, the unpleasantness that is arising. And so we go out and we drink and we do drugs and we have sex and we do foolish things in life that bring us those moments of happiness, right? Because we are beings that are addicted to sensual desire, right? All the pleasures of sights and sound and touch and feelings, all these are the things that we want because they're bodily functions, right? We want to give our body something that makes it feel good. And so it's the first on our 5 hindrances as we're going through meditation class, right? Sensual desire. And what did we talk about? What was the antidote to sensual desire? Impermanence. And so the Buddha is trying to help teach us that yeah, you can go out and obtain these sensual pleasures, right? all of us want to be able to see beautiful things, to hear beautiful sounds, to taste good food, to feel good things sensually, right? But when we have that, or when we obtain it, how long does it last? Not very much, but not very long, right? And so we continue to go after it again. We go after it again and again and again. So there's no end to this desire of wanting pleasure in life. And because we don't understand our desires, we don't understand where these desires are coming from or why we're attached to them, why we seek this type of pleasure, we become addicted to these things. And so after a while, if you go out and you're addicted to alcohol and drugs, it may have taken you one drink to get a little tipsy, maybe drunk, depending on your body, right? But after a while, you're going to need 2, you're going to need 3, you're going to need 4, you're going to need 5 drinks just to bring up that same pleasurable response that you used to. Same thing with drugs. That's how we get addicted to things. You can take one pill, sure, it may show you crazy visions and you may be flying in space for a while, which sounds cool. But after a while, it doesn't. Don't do that. But after a while, it's going to take more than that, right? And so we are constantly feeding this addiction. And that's how addiction works, because addiction is our way of trying to escape reality. Because we do not want to face reality. We don't want to accept reality. Because reality is full of good and bad. Reality is full of pleasures and displeasures. It's full of good and bad and right and wrong. But most people can't or don't want to see that. They don't want to accept that. They don't want to live in that kind of environment. And so they use externalities to replace those displeasures. And so you go with drugs, you go with alcohol, you go with whatever it may be, right? It's not just these types of addictions. Even daydreaming can be an addiction. Daydreaming about wanting things to be different. Daydreaming about being married to Jeff Bezos or someone, right? I don't know. But addiction comes in different forms. So it's not just drugs and alcohol. It's anything that you are trying to go after outside of yourself to make you happy can be and will be an addiction to some degree. And so one of the main goals of Buddhist practice is to come back to reality, right? To find a way to be happy at all times, in any situation, in any circumstance, and not have our happiness depend on anything that's outside or anything that's specific or situational that's outside of ourselves. If your happiness depends on something outside, you're never going to be happy. If you believe you need something or you want something, you're not happy. Being happy is being happy here and now. In the present moment, you have everything you need to be happy. You have everything you need to be happy. But because we don't understand our desires, we don't understand our mind, we don't understand how reality actually is, it's difficult to accept the here and now. Because what happens when we meditate? Most often, for most people, you're sitting and meditating, trying to clear your mind, you're concentrating on your object of meditation or on your breath. But what happens often is you start, what? Getting distracted. You start daydreaming. You start thinking about lunch or dinner, or about your to-do list, or your tasks, or your family, your work, your friends, etc., right? Your mind is trying to escape from being at the present moment because it cannot control the present moment. Our mind is addicted as well to the past and the future. It's addicted to time. So when you're trying to be in the present moment, your mind's like, no, we don't like that. Let's go back a couple of years and remember that argument we had with our significant other that we're still mad about. Or let me think about what I need to do next week or next vacation or next spring break, right? So it's taking away from reality. It's making you think of things that will bring you happiness. And so part of our practice, part of our meditation is to be able to sit and see that, and see how that addictive process is seeing that is what is making us unhappy in the first place. And so part of the teaching in these verses is to also recognize that reality is karma. Karma is reality. Karma is what? Karma is, the little translation is action, right? So there's no me and I. It's the things that you do that will control or manipulate your happiness or unhappiness, right? So if there's chaos in the world, it's because there were actions of chaos in the world. It didn't just appear by itself. But when there's love and kindness in the world, that means love and kindness was created, it was done, right? It was an actionable thing that was done to do. And so there's no me or I in the situation. It's all about action. And so if we're able to recognize that and see that and accept that life is just karma, as action, and what we do, and how we act, and how we behave, and how we think, and how the things that we do in life, that's what's going to create our happiness or unhappiness. But again, just like with the other, what is going on? Just like with the other verses, that if we want these things, if we want to escape our suffering or create happiness, what needs to be done? This is a question. What needs to be done? If you want to get rid of your suffering and obtain happiness, what do you need to do? Sorry? See things as they are. Following the Eightfold Path. Following the Eightfold Path is the instruction manual that the Buddha gave us to be able to tear away the illusions of the world, to tear away what we think we see and what we think we hear and know and believe, to tear away those veils of illusion, of delusion and ignorance. And by tearing away that illusion of the world that we have, that we think we have, according to our perception, then we can see things as they are. Right? One of the things I always mention in meditation class, when we're meditating, what do we do? What is one of the most important things we need to do in meditation? Focus. Focus on what? One at a time. Sorry, what? Okay, close. No. Yes. Sorry? Well, we focus on being in the present moment by doing what? Labeling. Labeling. Because when we're able to label, we're seeing things as they are. Remember, I tell you, every time we're meditating and hear the door open, our minds are habitually going to go to that sound. Who's at the door? Why are they late? Why are they interrupting my meditation? It's supposed to be quiet. And I hear ding, 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 and then you hear footsteps, right? And so our mind is going to wander and wonder these things. It's going to create a story about the simple fact of the door opening, or by hearing the sound. All that storytelling that we made up is false. It's an illusion. It's just something we're making up to justify the sound that we hear. But we don't know. It could just be that someone never closed the door correctly, so the wind just opened it up, right? So there's no one there for us to wonder who's there. There's no one there to wonder why they're late. It was simply just the door opening. And so when we're labeling, we're able to label it as just sound or door and let it be. That's it. That's what it is. Because if you add more to it, you're creating these stories that are not true. They're false. So that's why we mostly